All right. So we're gonna make a video now on Kofu Box. I had posted, I guess like a teaser or whatever on Twitter about this list, making cut over at a local or a recent cup that I played at. So me, Armand, and Bryson, we all played this deck together, and then me and Bryson actually played one another in the first round of top eight in the mirror match. So that was something we were not expecting. However, it's what happened. So let's dive into this deck. So we kind of had a very simple idea. Kofu has those two Pokemon, Crabominal and Veluza, that have an ability, Food Prep, that depending on how many Kofu are in your discard pile, they swing for a colorless less. So we just had the idea of getting 4 Kofu in the discard pile as soon as possible. And then we also needed a backup plan in case we prized a Kofu or Blunder. So that's where Palkia stepped in. And then we needed to be sure that we weren't capped at 250 or weren't limited to only winning by hitting 250 or 260 with the Crabominal or Palkia. So we tried to include other win conditions or just like ways to do more damage. So here's the deck list. As you see, we have that Blender and those 4 Kofu as sort of the backbone of the deck. It's not an engine, but the backbone of the deck. And then our attackers are Crabominal, Palkia V-Star, and Greninja. So those are like the main swingers of the deck. Veluza can also swing, obviously. Can do 110 for free. So that comes up a lot of times when we're two-shotting things. The Veluza is kind of what does that second. And then we included the Slowbro with Twilight Inspiration. Just seemed like a possible way to win games. Maybe we force our opponent to take 5 prizes, we're left with 2, and there's only, big giant 2-prizer in the active that we're not able to one-shot before we lose. So therefore, we have Twilight Inspiration to be able to take the game from there. It also felt to us like it could be a possible win con into things like other single prize matchups. So we just gave that a shot, put it in this deck. I think in all 7 of the rounds, like combined that we played, Twilight Inspiration was announced 1 time. So not something that we used a whole lot, but it was in there. It was a fun idea, and yeah, we'll talk more about that in a moment. So let's talk about the setup. Honestly, the setup of this deck is super simple. Going first, you just fill your board with as many evolving bonds as possible. And then going second, you just create a single prize board state and you possibly swing a Veluza. Swinging Veluza normally doesn't really do much for you. Taking 1 prize into like an evolving deck or like a 2-prize deck isn't helping you that much. And then swinging into like support mons like Rotom or something also doesn't do too much for you because you're already going to one-shot that with a Crabominal. So it just really depends, but it also can get you a Donk, which is kind of cool. So Veluza is just something to keep in mind. Now, the matchup spread. So this is what our idea was of the matchup spread going into the event. We'll talk more about like how we feel the matchup spread actually is, but this is the matchup spread. So Terapagos we thought was probably losing, but maybe, there's a chance. So the main issues were that Terapagos, if they're playing the Boufflant, means we can't KO the Terapagos very easily. They also have the Dusknoir lines, that way they're able to take multi-prize turns on us, as well as like wipe the board if possible, all of our crabs. So kind of weird. Raging Bolt, we thought we would win pretty easily. Anytime you're a single prize deck that's able to one-shot a 2-prizer, like in a big basic kind of meta, you're going to do well. So we felt that we were pretty confident into Bolt. Even if they played Charm, you're able to take 4 prizes over 3 turns by swinging into 2 bolts with Charms and then Greninjaing them. So that felt like a fine matchup. Zard and Pult are kind of the 2 that we thought would be the hardest. Zard mostly because we don't really have a way to one-shot Zard, and by that I mean we just can't one-shot Zard. We can one-shot the Pidgeot EX if we're behind with Defiance Band, but it's pretty hard to find that Defiance Band when you need it, since we don't have like Arven in the list. And then Pult is just so hard. That spread of 6 is really, really bad for us. They have Briar, so they can like take multi-prizes. They have Dusknoir, so they can like also take multi-prizes. It was pretty just miserable trying to think about how we beat that match. Miraidon, you can get into like a board state where they have nothing that they can amp or take two prizes on. Since the Crabominal is weak to steel and not to lightning, so they can't amp your Crabominal, but your Crabominal can return KO Iron Hand. So that felt like it was probably 50-50. It's a little weird to pilot because you can't bench any of your support mons early or like freely. You have to do it very intentionally alongside hand disruption. So just a weird one. And then Regidrago we thought was pretty good for us. We're pretty much always able to take two prizes on our second turn going first because of our Iron Bundle. So if they go Cleffa, we can just bundle and then they have to give us two prizes. And then if they double bench single prizers, such as Cleffa and Radzard, which are kind of the only two that are in their decks nowadays, that Iron Bundle still nets us two prizes because if they put up the Radzard, then you can Greninja, Radzard, and Cleffa for two. So felt pretty nice, and we had Choice Belt to be able to one-shot a Regidrago V-Star. Now, let's talk about some of the deck's issues. Zard kind of turned out to be nearly impossible. Two-shotting a Zard is something you can do, but they don't have to bench like the liabilities like the Rotom, which is like something you could prey on if they did bench it, to then be able to go like Defiance Band, kill a Pidgeot, two-shot a Zard, and then kill Lumineon, Rotom, whatever for your final prize. But if they don't bench that prize liability, or if they collapsed it before you're able to kill it, then it's just really hard. The second thing that started coming up was prizes can be really, really bad. If you prize one Kofu, like you can mostly get through the game. If you're prizing like two Kofu or like a Palkia piece, it can be really hard to just consistently like swing every single turn in those moments. And then Pult just bodies the deck. It was outside of me losing to Bryson in the top 8, the only deck that we lost to all day was Pult. And that it was the same Pult player, and he beat us every single time by taking a 5-prize turn to end the game. So that was pretty hard to play around. As much as we tried, we still just couldn't get there. Unsure still really how we were supposed to beat that, but he drew the nuts in one of the games, and other times it was just all his to win. So those were kind of the issues that we started running into, and decided to drop the deck after these issues because we just couldn't really find an answer, and those decks seemed to be upticking in popularity. Some possible changes for the deck is cut the Slowbro line. It is a fun idea, and it's really cool in theory, and it can win you some games. However, setting it up is pretty difficult. The slow poke taking a bench spot is bad in most times, and then having to Arven the slow poke into the Slowbro and then manual attach like a reversal is something you can do, but it's pretty just like you have to have a lot of foresight and like set your deck, your hand, and your discard pile up for that turn to happen. So we cut the Slowbro. Maybe add Arven in place, that way you can guarantee those tools, which is another problem that we were having. Not being able to guarantee those tools meant that like the turns we needed to go boss the Pidgeot and Defiance Band, we were unable to because we didn't have Arven. So like Arven could be a really easy slot in there. And then we're thinking maybe adding like a Dusclops package, just because that additional damage modifier can be pretty good. So that way you can kill things outside of your tools. You can also like force your reversal energies to be online in certain scenarios. So that way your prizing doesn't matter as much as before. So like if you have 2 Kofus in the discard pile, your reversal is enough to swing. Things like that. So small Dusclops package could be in there. Probably not a Dusknoir. The 13 is a little bit overkill, and you don't want to have to play Candy. So just a Dusclops, maybe like 1-1 line, maybe 2-1, but 1-1 is what we're really considering. So conclusion, and what led us to pick this deck. The idea of having a single prize board that swings for a lot of damage and playing Blender is pretty much the whole reason we decided to play Kofu. Also, this deck does well, even if your opponent knows what your deck does, unlike Boombox. So that was something that we really wanted, was a deck that wasn't just a gimmick or just a deck that won because of surprise. You know, even if our opponent knows that Abominable swings for 250, it's pretty hard to like make a game plan around gusting 1-prizers before they evolve. So that was kind of something that played into our favor. And then also, this deck doesn't auto lose to Bolt, which as a collective we had gotten really tired of losing to. That deck just bodied everything that we were testing, and it bodies Boombox. So something that finally beat Bolt felt really good. And this deck definitely beats Bolt, even though I don't think we played a single Bolt. But fear not, it beats Bolt for sure. But yeah, so that is everything on Kofu. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've been enjoying making these, and I'm excited to bring whatever the next deck is that we have to the table. Not too sure what it is just yet, so I can't even leak if I wanted to. But thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you again soon.